Jake Martinez could barely feel his left leg anymore. The pain had turned into a dull throb that matched his heartbeat. Blood soaked through his torn combat uniform as he dragged himself through the alien jungle. The purple trees around him looked like twisted monsters in the dim light from 2 moons above. His squad was gone. All of them dead. 3 hours ago, they had been laughing and sharing photos from home. Now Jake was the only one left alive on this nightmare planet called Kepler 442b. The enemy had hit them hard and fast. Vorthon Empire soldiers with their black armor and red glowing eyes had appeared from nowhere. Jake remembered how it started. They were on a simple patrol mission, checking sensor readings near the old mining. Station command had said it would be easy. Just walk around for a few hours and report back. Nothing dangerous, they said. Just routine work, but the Vorthans were waiting. The first explosion threw Jake 20 feet into a tree. His rifle went flying, and when he looked up, half his squad was already down. Tommy Chen from California was screaming and holding his chest. Maria Rodriguez from Texas was not moving at all, her eyes staring at nothing. Jake had tried to help them, he really did, but the enemy kept shooting. Their plasma weapons made horrible sounds like thunder mixed with screaming. The bright green bolts turned everything they touched into ash and smoke. He managed to grab his rifle and return fire. The M4 carbine felt good in his hands, familiar and reliable. He put down 3 Vorthans before their friends forced him to run. Jake hated running from a fight, but staying meant dying for nothing. So he ran through the alien forest, dragging his wounded leg behind him. The Vorthans chased him for almost an hour before giving up. Maybe they thought he would die anyway from his injuries. Maybe they had other humans to kill. Jake pulled out his radio and tried calling for help. Static filled his earpiece for long minutes before a voice finally answered. It was the Galactic Defense Force base about 5 miles north. They had soldiers from many different planets all fighting together against the Vorthan Empire. At least that was what Jake believed. The voice on the radio spoke, with a strange accent, but the English was clear enough. Jake explained what happened to his squad. The voice told him to reach the base. They would help him get medical care and contact Earth. Command Jake felt hope for the first time in hours. He was not alone. The galaxy was full of different species, but they were all on the same side fighting the Vorthans. Everyone said the aliens were good people who wanted to help humanity join the galactic community. He started moving toward the base, again. Each step sent fire through his injured leg, but Jake kept going. American soldiers do not quit. He thought about his wife back in Colorado and his little daughter who just started school. They were counting on him to come home. The jungle made weird sounds at night. Creatures he could not see made clicking and whistling noises. Some sounded almost like music. Others sounded like warnings. Jake tried not to think about what kinds of animals might be hunting in the darkness. After 2 hours of painful walking, Jake finally saw lights through the trees. The Galactic Defense Force base sat in a cleared area surrounded by energy barriers and guard towers. It looked safe and welcoming after the horrors of the jungle. Jake reached the main gate and collapsed. His strength was completely gone now. The wound in his leg had opened up again and was bleeding heavily. He could taste copper in his mouth, and his vision kept going dark around the edges. The massive metal gates began to slide, open with a loud mechanical sound. Jake smiled despite his pain. Help was coming. He would get medical treatment and then figure out how to get revenge for his dead squad mates. Several figures came running out of the base toward him. Jake expected to see medics with stretchers and medical equipment. Instead, he saw soldiers from different alien species. They moved quickly, but something felt wrong. Jake heard sounds he did not expect. Laughter cold. Cruel laughter that made his blood freeze even, worse than the pain in his leg. These beings were supposed to be his allies. Why were they laughing at a wounded soldier? Captain Day Ho from the crystal world of Zentara was the first to reach Jake. His blue, translucent skin seemed to glow in the moonlight, and his tall, thin body cast a long shadow. The alien looked down at Jake with what might have been amusement. Lieutenant Su Jin floated nearby in her environmental suit. Her tentacles moved in patterns that Jake somehow knew meant she was enjoying herself. Other soldiers gathered around, forming a circle. Jake realized none of them carried medical supplies. The laughter got louder. Jake tried to understand what was happening. These aliens were supposed to be humanity's friends. They fought together against the Vorthon Empire. Earth had joined the Galactic Defense Force 2 years ago when the war started. Everyone said it was an honor to fight beside such advanced civilizations, but the sounds they were making did not sound friendly at all. They sounded like predators who had found wounded prey. Sergeant Min Ho from the desert planet, Zerion, made clicking sounds with his insect-like mouth. Jake had learned that different alien species laughed in different ways, but this was not the good kind of laughter. This was the sound of someone enjoying another person's pain. Jake forced himself to speak through gritted teeth. I am an American soldier. My squad was ambushed by Vorthons. I need medical attention and contact with my command more. Laughter filled the air, Captain. Dae-ho stepped closer and spoke in perfect English. Look what the jungle brought us. Another broken human. Your species talks big about being warriors, but you break so easily. Lieutenant Su-jin added her voice to the mockery. Humans are such fragile creatures. Your bones snap like twigs. Your skin tears like paper. How did Earth ever think it could fight in a real war? Jake felt anger rising through the pain. These aliens were mocking him while he bled on their doorstep. He had just watched his friends die fighting their common enemy, and this was how they treated a wounded ally. The alien soldiers kept making jokes about human weakness. They talked about how pathetic Earth forces were, and how amusing it was to watch humans try to fight real battles. Jake realized with growing horror that these beings did not see him as a brother in arms. They saw him as entertainment. Sergeant Min Ho clicked his mandibles again. Perhaps we should send pieces of him back to Earth. Save the Vorthons some work. The laughter grew louder and more cruel. Jake closed his eyes and tried to think through the pain. Something was very wrong here. These aliens knew too much about human weaknesses. They talked like they had been studying his species like lab animals. Jake thought about his training and his duty as an American soldier. He thought about the oath he took to defend his country and protect his fellow warriors. Even if these aliens would not help him, he would find a way to complete his mission, but first he had to survive long enough to figure out what was really going on. The alien soldiers finally stopped laughing and picked Jake up roughly. They carried him into the base not gently like medics, but carelessly, like they were moving cargo. Jake bit back screams as they jostled his wounded leg as they brought him through the gates. Jake got a good look at the base layout, guard positions, weapon emplacements, communication arrays. He memorized everything. His training had taught him that intelligence could be the difference between life and death. The aliens threw him onto a medical table in what looked like a sick bay, but no one moved to treat his wounds. They just stood around talking in their own languages, occasionally pointing at Jake and laughing again. Jake realized he might be in more danger here than he had been in the jungle, at least. There the enemies had been honest about wanting to kill him. Here, surrounded by supposed allies, Jake began to understand that the real war might be very different from what Earth Command had told him. The truth was going to be much worse than he could possibly imagine. Captain Dae-ho stood over Jake like a giant made of living crystal. His blue skin caught the light from the medical bay and threw strange patterns on the walls. The alien captain was almost 8 feet tall, with arms that seemed too long for his body. When he smiled, Jake could see teeth like sharp diamonds. Your species amuses us, human, Dae-ho said in his perfect English voice. Every word sounded like it was carefully chosen to cause the most pain possible. You come to our galaxy thinking, you are warriors, but you die so easily. Jake tried to sit up on the medical table, but strong alien hands pushed him back down. Lieutenant Su-jin floated closer. Her tentacles moving in what Jake was learning meant excitement. Her environmental suit made soft humming sounds as the life support systems kept her alive in the oxygen-rich atmosphere. We have been watching humans fight for 2 years now, Su-jin said through her suit speakers. You are weaker than the youngest children from our worlds. Your weapons are primitive. Your tactics are simple. We wonder why Earth thinks it deserves to join the galactic community. More alien soldiers crowded into the medical bay. Jake counted at least 12 different species, all wearing the same Galactic Defense Force uniforms, but none of them looked friendly. They looked like scientists studying an interesting specimen. Sergeant Min Ho pushed forward on his 6 insect legs. The desert dweller was only 5 feet tall, but his mandibles could probably cut through steel. He clicked them together rapidly while speaking in broken English. Human soldiers cry when they get hurt. We saw videos from other battles. Very funny to watch. A new alien entered the medical bay. This one was completely different. From the others, Major Kyung-soo from the ice world of Glacialis had white fur and glowing yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. His species looked almost like earth wolves, but they walked upright and had hands instead of paws. I have studied human anatomy. Kyung-soo said in a voice like grinding ice, "Your bodies are poorly designed for combat. Thin skin that cuts easily, bones that break under pressure, internal organs with no natural armor. It is amazing you survived long enough to develop space travel." Jake felt his anger growing stronger than his pain. These aliens were not just mocking him. They were analyzing him like he was some kind of failed experiment. He forced himself to speak clearly, despite the pain in his chest. "I am Staff Sergeant Jake Martinez, United States Army. I have been fighting for my country for 12 years. I have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and now here against the Vorthons. My squad held the line for 3 days while civilians evacuated. We are not weak." Aliens burst into laughter again, but this time it sounded even crueler than before. Captain Dae-ho actually had to lean against the wall because he was laughing so hard Lieutenant Soo-jin made sounds like a dolphin having a seizure. 3 days, Major," Kyung-soo repeated, still chuckling. "My people fight for 3 months without rest. Your 3 days is what we call a warm-up exercise." Sergeant Min Ho scuttled closer to the medical table, clicking his mandibles rapidly. "Human soldiers need food every few hours. They need water constantly. They need sleep every day, so many weaknesses. We go weeks without any of those things." Jake realized these aliens were not just making fun of him. They were genuinely surprised by how weak they thought humans were. It was like they had never seen a species with such biological limitations. But Jake knew something they apparently did not. Human soldiers might need food and sleep and water, but they also had something these aliens seemed to lack. They had heart. They had the will to keep fighting even when everything looked hopeless. Colonel Hyojin entered the medical bay, and all the other aliens stepped back respectfully. She was from the gas giant world of Nephros like Lieutenant Soo-jin, but she was much larger and her tentacles had scars from many battles. "I have been reading the reports from your patrol mission," she said to Jake. Her voice sounded like wind blowing through caves. "The Vorthons killed your squad in less than 10 minutes. Your weapons barely scratched their armor. Your tactics were so predictable they knew where you would run before you did." Jake felt cold dread in his stomach. How did this alien colonel know so much about his mission? Those details should have been classified. Earth Command would not share tactical information about failed missions with alien allies, unless the aliens already knew what was going to happen. The thought hit Jake like a punch to the gut. These aliens talked like they had been expecting his squad to fail. They knew too much about Vorthon weapons and tactics. They seemed almost happy that human soldiers had died. "I want to contact my command," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I need to report what happened to my squad." More laughter filled the medical bay. Colonel Hyojin made sounds like a broken air conditioner while Captain Dae-ho actually slapped his knee with amusement. "Your command," Colonel Hyojin said when she stopped laughing. "Your precious Earth Command sent you here to die." They knew this would happen. We all knew this would happen. Jake felt the world spinning around him. What did she mean? They all knew. The mission briefing had said it was a routine patrol, low risk with good intelligence support. How could everyone know it would fail? Because human Lieutenant Soo-jin said, floating even closer to the medical table, "Your species serves a very important purpose in this war. You test enemy weapons for us." The words hit Jake harder than any Vorthon plasma bolt could have. The room seemed to get darker and colder as the full meaning sank in. His squad had not been sent on a patrol mission. They had been sent to die so these aliens could learn about enemy capabilities. "You sent us into a trap," Jake whispered. Captain Dae-ho nodded his crystal head enthusiastically. "Of course we did. Human soldiers are perfect for testing new Vorthan weapons. You are weak enough that everything hurts you, but tough enough to survive long enough for us to gather data. Major Kyung So added his voice to the explanation. We need to know how their plasma weapons work against living targets. We cannot risk our own people, so we send humans instead. Very efficient system. Jake thought about Tommy Chen screaming as the plasma bolt burned through his chest. He thought about Maria Rodriguez staring at nothing with her dead eyes. His friends had died not in a heroic battle against impossible odds, but as test subjects in an alien experiment. How many other human squads had been sent to die this way? How many American soldiers had been sacrificed to gather intelligence for beings who saw them as nothing more than expendable lab rats? The alien soldiers kept talking about human weaknesses like they were discussing the weather. They mentioned how human blood coagulated differently than alien blood, and how human bones made interesting sounds when they broke. They had been studying human deaths like scientists studying bacteria. Sergeant Minho produced a data pad and started reading from it. Human pain responses are quite dramatic, very entertaining to watch on video, much more emotional than other species. Jake realized that somewhere there were videos of human soldiers dying, and these aliens watched them for entertainment. His brothers in arms had become a form of alien television. Colonel Hyo Jin seemed to read his thoughts. Yes, human, we record everything. Your deaths teach us valuable lessons about enemy weapons, and they provide amusement during long shifts. Your species is useful in many ways. The aliens continued their cruel discussion for another hour. They talked about human weaknesses like they were sharing recipes. They mentioned specific battles where human soldiers had been sent to die and what those deaths had taught them. Jake lay on the medical table listening to every word. His training had taught him to gather intelligence even in the worst situations. These aliens thought he was broken and defeated, but his mind was still working, still recording everything they said. They had made one critical mistake in all their planning. They assumed that a wounded human was a defeated human. They thought physical injury meant mental surrender. They were about to learn how wrong they were as the night shift began and most of the aliens left the medical bay. Jake started planning his next move. These beings had used him and his squad as test subjects, but they had also given him something valuable. They had revealed their true nature and their methods. Now Jake knew the real enemy was not just the Vorthans. It was every alien in the Galactic Defense Force who saw humans as expendable tools. Jake Martinez was about to show them why that was a very dangerous mistake to make. American soldiers do not stay down when they get knocked down. They get back up and they get even. Jake pretended to sleep on the medical table, but his ears were wide open. The thin walls of the alien medical bay did nothing to stop voices from carrying between rooms. What he heard in the next hour changed everything he thought he knew about. The War General Tae-Wan from the water world of Hydros had arrived at the base. His gills made wet slapping sounds as he breathed the oxygen atmosphere through his environmental suit. Jake could hear him talking to Captain Dae-Ho and Colonel Hyo Jin in the next room. The human performed exactly as our models predicted, the general said in his gurgling voice. Our intelligence about Vorthon plasma weapons is now complete, thanks to his squads. Sacrifice. Jake felt ice in his veins. They had not just sent his squad into danger. They had calculated exactly how his friends would die. Lieutenant Su Jin joined the conversation, floating through the doorway between rooms. The data we collected from the human deaths is invaluable. We now know that Vorthon weapons are calibrated specifically for human physiology. The energy frequency targets human cell structure. Captain Dae-Ho made his crystal laugh again. Excellent. Our own species can now adjust our armor accordingly. The humans served their purpose perfectly. Jake realized with growing horror that his friends had died to help aliens protect themselves. The Galactic Defense Force had deliberately sent human soldiers to face weapons designed to kill humans. Then they used the data from those deaths to save alien lives, but the worst revelation was still coming. General Tae-Wan continued speaking, and Jake had to bite his tongue to keep from screaming. We have been feeding human tactical data to the Vorthons for 6 months now. Every human patrol route, every weakness in their equipment, every detail about their training. The enemy knows exactly how to kill humans because we tell them. The room seemed to spin around Jake even though he was lying still. The aliens were not just using humans as test subjects, they were actively helping the enemy kill them. The Galactic Defense Force was working with the Vorthans. Major Kyung-soo entered the conversation, his wolf-like voice filled with satisfaction. The Vorthans pay us well. For human intelligence, they want to study human combat capabilities before they invade Earth. Our cooperation benefits everyone except the humans. Of course. Jake had to focus all his training on staying perfectly still and quiet. His body wanted to jump up and start fighting, but that would only get him killed before he could warn anyone. The aliens thought he was unconscious and broken. They were revealing secrets that could save his entire species. Colonel Hyojin made her wind through, cave sound. The humans believe they are fighting for galactic freedom. How amusing they do not realize their own allies are selling them to the highest bidder. General. Taiwan gurgled with laughter. Earth Command thinks we respect their primitive warriors. They send us detailed reports about human capabilities thinking we are impressed. Instead, we forward everything to the Vorthans. The conversation continued, and Jake learned the full scope of the betrayal. The Galactic Defense Force had never intended to fight alongside humanity. They saw Earth as a source of test subjects and intelligence to sell. The entire war was a business transaction with human lives, as the currency sergeant Minho scuttled into the room, clicking his mandibles. Excitedly, the Vorthans have offered us exclusive mining rights to 3-star systems, if we can provide them with live human specimens for their laboratories. Jake felt sick to his stomach. The aliens were not just killing human soldiers. They were planning to capture them alive for alien experiments. The enemy wanted to study humans like laboratory animals, but the most shocking revelation came when Captain Dae-ho started talking about Earth itself. The Vorthans plan to invade Earth within 6 months, he said casually. They have enough data about human weaknesses now. Thanks to our cooperation, Earth will fall in less than a week. Lieutenant Soo-jin made her dolphin seizure sounds again. The humans built their entire defense strategy around galactic support. When we abandon them during the invasion, they will be completely helpless. General Taiwan gurgled approval. Our species will divide Earth between us after the Vorthans finish with the humans. Rich resources, good climate, perfect. For colonization, Jake realized that every human on Earth was going to die unless someone warned them. The aliens had been studying human weaknesses for 2 years, planning the complete destruction of his species. They saw Earth not as an ally to protect, but as a prize to claim. The conversation moved to technical details about the planned invasion. Jake memorized every word his training had taught him to retain information under stress. The aliens discussed which cities to target first, which human military installations to neutralize, and how to prevent any humans from escaping off-planet. Major Kyung-soo seemed especially interested in human children. The young ones will adapt better to slavery, he said in his grinding ice voice. We can train them to serve our needs while the adults are eliminated. Jake had heard enough. His species was facing complete extinction, and he was the only human who knew the truth. The aliens had played a perfect game, making Earth trust them while secretly planning genocide, but they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed a wounded human soldier was no longer dangerous. They thought physical injury meant mental defeat. They believed Jake was broken and harmless. They had never encountered a United States Navy SEAL before. Jake had been trained for situations exactly like this, deep behind enemy lines, surrounded by hostiles with no backup and no communication. His instructors had taught him that the mission always comes first, even when everything looks hopeless. His mission now was simple: survive long enough to warn Earth and stop the invasion. The aliens kept talking for another hour, revealing more details about their plans. They discussed how to disable Earth satellites, how to prevent human ships from leaving the planet, and how to neutralize human nuclear weapons. Jake memorized it all. Finally, the alien officers left the medical bay to get some rest. They believed their human prisoner was unconscious and dying. They had no idea he was planning their destruction. Jake waited until the base grew quiet during the night shift. Only a few guards remained on duty, and they were not paying attention to the medical bay. The aliens were so confident in their superiority they barely bothered to watch their prisoner time to show them why that was a mistake. Jake carefully examined his injuries. His left leg was badly damaged but still functional. His ribs were cracked but not broken. His vision was clear and his hands were steady. The aliens had provided basic medical care to keep him alive for further study, but they had not sedated him. They thought a wounded human was helpless. They were about to learn the difference between wounded and defeated. Jake began working on his restraints, using techniques learned in survival school. The alien materials were advanced, but they were designed to hold sick patients, not trained special operations soldiers. Within minutes, he had freed himself. The medical bay contained equipment Jake did not recognize, but electronics worked on similar principles across all species. He found what looked like a computer terminal and started examining the alien interface. His training included basic computer infiltration techniques most species used, similar logic patterns in their programming. Jake started probing the system looking for weaknesses. The aliens had made another critical error. They had connected their medical computers to the main base network, probably to share data about human physiology. Jake now had access to everything: communication systems, weapons controls, sensor arrays, personnel records, everything the aliens thought was secret. Jake smiled for the first time since his squad died. These advanced galactic civilizations were about to get a lesson in human ingenuity, time to turn the tables. The aliens thought they were the hunters, but they had just become the prey. Jake Martinez had spent 12 years learning how to break things and 12 years learning how to fix them. The alien computer system was more advanced than anything on Earth, but it still followed basic logic patterns. Within an hour, he had cracked their security. The aliens had made their biggest mistake by underestimating human intelligence. They saw his species as physically weak and assumed that meant mentally weak too. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Jake started downloading everything he could find: battle plans for the invasion of Earth, detailed intelligence about Vorthon military capabilities, lists of which alien species were secretly working with the enemy, communication codes that would let Earth forces intercept enemy messages. But most importantly, he found the complete database of human soldiers who had been sent to die over the past 2 years. Thousands of names from every country on Earth, all sacrificed to provide intelligence for aliens who planned to destroy humanity. Tommy Chen and Maria Rodriguez were just 2 names on a list of expendable test subjects. The aliens had detailed records of how each human soldier died and what those deaths taught them about enemy weapons. Jake felt rage burning in his chest, but he kept working. His emotions could wait until after he completed the mission. Right now he needed to focus on gathering intelligence and getting it back to Earth. The alien computer system contained something even more valuable than battle plans. Jake found communication logs between the Galactic Defense Force and the Vorthon Empire. The messages proved that aliens were selling human intelligence to the enemy. General Taiwan had been personally negotiating with Vorthon commanders, trading human lives for mining rights and future territorial claims on Earth. The communications showed that the entire galactic war was fake. Both sides were working together to study and eventually destroy humanity. Jake copied everything onto portable storage devices he found in the medical bay. The aliens used crystalline data storage that could hold massive amounts of information. A single crystal contained enough evidence to expose the entire conspiracy. But downloading data was only the first part of his mission. Jake also needed to cripple the alien base and escape with his intelligence. His Navy SEAL training had prepared him for exactly this kind of operation. Jake accessed the base's defense systems and began planting logic bombs in the software. These were programs designed to activate later and cause maximum damage. When triggered, they would shut down communications, knock out life support systems, and disable weapons. The aliens had sophisticated technology, but they had designed it to be user-friendly. Anyone with proper access codes could control base operations. Jake had those codes now thanks to their own computer system. While his logic bombs loaded into the alien systems, Jake prepared for the next phase of his escape. He needed transportation and weapons. The base computer showed him where both were located. The armory was 3 levels down and heavily guarded, but the hangar bay was only 1 level up and lightly defended during night shift. A small scout ship would be perfect for his needs. Fast enough to outrun pursuit and equipped with faster-than-light communication, Jake moved carefully through the medical bay, checking for guards. The alien soldiers were confident their human prisoner was unconscious and dying. They had posted only one guard outside the medical facility. Sergeant Min Ho was standing by the door, clicking his mandibles quietly. The insect soldier was reading something on a data pad and not paying attention to his surroundings. Jake approached from behind using techniques learned in special operations training. The alien never knew what hit him. One quick movement and Sergeant Min Ho was unconscious. Jake dragged him into a storage closet and took his weapons. The aliens used energy weapons that were lighter and more powerful than human firearms. Jake tested the plasma rifle quickly. It was intuitive enough that he could figure out basic operation. The weapon would punch through alien armor like it was made of paper. Jake made his way through the base corridors, moving like a ghost. His training had taught him how to avoid detection even in hostile territory. The aliens had motion sensors and security cameras, but they were designed to watch for external threats, not internal movement. The base layout was logical once Jake understood alien architectural principles. Living areas on lower levels, command and control in the center, hangar and launch facilities on top. It was actually similar to human military base design. Jake reached the hangar level without being detected. The night shift skeleton crew was focused on routine maintenance. They were not expecting trouble from inside their own facility. 2 alien technicians were working on a large transport ship, but the small scout vessels were unguarded. Jake identified the newest-looking ship and began his approach. The scout ship was beautiful in its alien way. Smooth curves and flowing lines that looked more grown than built. The hull was made from some kind of adaptive metal that seemed to shift colors in different light. Jake found the entry hatch and discovered it was unlocked. The aliens really did believe their base was completely secure. Why would anyone lock a ship when there were no possible threats inside the facility? The scout ship interior was designed for a single pilot with basic life support and navigation systems. Jake studied the controls for several minutes. Most functions were automated with simple interface screens. Even the faster-than-light drive had easy operation procedures. Jake powered up the ship systems as quietly as possible. The engines made almost no sound thanks to alien technology, but various displays began glowing, which might attract attention. Time was running out. Jake activated his logic bombs throughout the base computer system and prepared for immediate departure. The aliens would realize what was happening within minutes. Warning alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Jake smiled as he heard alien voices shouting in panic over the communication system. His logic bombs were working perfectly. Base communications went down first, isolating the facility from outside contact. Life support systems began failing in non-critical areas. Emergency lighting activated throughout the facility. Weapon systems shut down, leaving the base defenseless. Jake launched the scout ship just as alien soldiers came running into the hangar bay. Captain Dae-ho was leading them, his crystal skin flashing angry red colors. The aliens fired their weapons at the escaping ship, but their targeting systems were offline thanks to Jake computer sabotage. The scout ship shot through the hangar bay opening and into the alien night sky. Jake engaged the faster-than-light drive as soon as he cleared the planet's atmosphere. Within seconds, he was millions of miles away and accelerating toward Earth. Behind him, the alien base was in complete chaos. Systems failures cascaded through every level as Jake logic bombs destroyed software and corrupted data files. The aliens would need weeks to repair the damage, and by then it would be too late. Jake activated the ship's communication array and began transmitting his intelligence to Earth. The crystal storage devices contained enough evidence to expose the entire alien conspiracy. Earth Command would finally understand the real enemy. But Jake also sent a personal message to his wife in Colorado telling her he was alive and coming home. He thought about Tommy Chen and Maria Rodriguez and all the other human soldiers who had died believing they were fighting alongside allies. Their deaths would not be in vain. Jake was bringing back intelligence that would save Earth and expose the aliens who had betrayed humanity. The scout ship raced through space carrying the most important cargo in human history. One wounded American soldier with the truth about the Galactic War, General Tae-wan and his alien allies, had made a fatal mistake when they decided to use humans as expendable test subjects. They assumed physical weakness meant mental weakness. They believed wounded meant defeated. They were about to learn why you should never underestimate a United States Navy. SEAL Jake Martinez, was going home and he was bringing hell with him. The aliens had laughed at a wounded American soldier. Soon the entire galaxy would learn why that was the biggest mistake they ever made. Earth was about to show the galaxy what humans could really do when they stopped pretending to be weak. 3 weeks after Jake Martinez escaped from the alien base, the galaxy watched in stunned silence as human warships appeared simultaneously in 17 star systems. The operation was called Payback, and it lived up to its name in spectacular fashion. Admiral Sarah Chen commanded the assault from the flagship USS Constitution, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed anything the aliens thought humans possessed. The ship stretched for 2 miles and bristled with weapons that made alien technology look like toys. Jake stood on the bridge watching as human forces demolished Vorthan strongholds that had been considered impregnable. The intelligence he had stolen was being put to devastating use. Every enemy weakness, every secret base location, every tactical plan was now in human hands. General Morrison from Earth Command had promoted Jake to colonel after debriefing him. The information he brought back had changed everything. Earth finally understood who the real enemy was: the Galactic Defense Force species that had pretended to be allies while secretly planning humanity's destruction. Captain Williams of the USS Constitution smiled as Vorthan ships exploded on the main screen. "Our new plasma cannons are working perfectly, sir. The aliens have no defense against weapons designed specifically to counter their technology." Jake nodded, watching the battle unfold. The humans had reverse-engineered, captured alien technology, and improved it beyond recognition. Earth scientists had taken the best ideas from 12 different species and combined them into something entirely new. Lieutenant Park Jin-woo led the ground assault on the planet where Jake had lost his squad. The young officer commanded a battalion of soldiers, wearing advanced exoskeletons that made them stronger and faster than any alien species. The same Vorthan forces that had easily slaughtered Jake's original patrol now found themselves completely outmatched. Human soldiers moved through their positions, like unstoppable machines tearing apart defenses that had held for months. Jake watched the tactical display as Lieutenant Park forces recaptured the entire continent in less than 2 days. What had taken the aliens months to conquer fell to human forces in hours, but the real surprise was not the speed of human victory. It was the revelation of capabilities that had been deliberately hidden for 2 years. Admiral Chen smiled as she watched alien fleet commanders panic on their communication channels. They thought they knew everything about human military technology. They were discovering how wrong they had been. "Jake, remember when they laughed at you for being weak?" Admiral Chen said. Her voice carried satisfaction and cold anger. "They assumed physical injuries meant we were defeated. They never considered that we might be pretending." The truth was finally coming out. Earth had been playing a much deeper game than anyone suspected. Human forces had deliberately appeared weak while secretly developing weapons and tactics that surpassed anything in the galaxy. "Colonel Martinez, your intelligence about alien computer systems has been invaluable," Captain Williams reported. "Our cyber warfare division has completely penetrated their networks. Every alien ship in this sector is now under our control." Jake watched as Vorthan battleships turned their weapons on each other, confused by false orders from their own command systems. Human hackers had taken control of entire fleets using techniques Jake had learned while infiltrating the alien base. The battle was not just a military victory, it was a demonstration of human technological superiority that shocked the galaxy. Every species had underestimated Earth capabilities. Now, they were seeing the truth. Major Kim Soo-jin from the South Korean Space Force reported from the surface. "Vorthan ground forces are in full retreat, sir. Our soldiers report that enemy weapons are having minimal effect on our new armor." The irony was perfect. The aliens had spent 2 years studying human weaknesses and designing weapons to kill human soldiers. Now those same weapons were useless against armor that had been specifically designed to counter them. Jake remembered Captain Dae-ho and his crystal friends laughing about human fragility. They had been so amused by human soldiers who needed food and water and sleep. They were about to learn that needing resources was very different from being weak. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Defense Force Fleet. Admiral Chen announced, "They are requesting immediate surrender. Put them through." Jake said he wanted to hear this personally. The main screen filled with the image of General Wan, his gills flapping in panic behind his environmental suit. Colonel Martinez, you escaped from our medical facility. We demand you return our stolen property immediately. Jake smiled coldly at the alien general who had planned to sell his species to the highest bidder. I am no longer Colonel Martinez, General. I have been promoted to General Martinez, and I am not returning anything. General Taiwan gurgled desperately. You do not understand the consequences of your actions. The galactic community will not tolerate human aggression against peaceful species. Admiral Chen laughed out loud. Peaceful species, General. Did you forget that we have recordings of your communications with the Vorthan Empire? The entire galaxy knows you were selling human intelligence to our enemies. Alien General visible deflated as he realized his conspiracy was fully exposed. Earth had not just stolen military intelligence, they had proof of betrayal by every species in the Galactic Defense Force. Major Kyung Soo appeared on screen beside General Taiwan, his wolf-like features twisted with fear. Human forces are attacking our homeworlds. This is genocide against superior civilizations. Jake felt no sympathy for the alien who had talked about enslaving human children. You wanted to study human weakness, he said calmly. Now you get to experience human strength. The difference is that we are not planning genocide, we are planning justice. The war ends not with negotiations, but with complete Vorthan surrender. Human forces demonstrate such overwhelming superiority that continued resistance becomes impossible. But the most shocking revelation comes during the post-war analysis, when the true extent of human deception becomes clear to the galactic community. Jake Martinez, now promoted to colonel, stands before the Galactic Council as Earth's representative. His scars have healed, but his memory of that night in the alien base burns as bright as ever. The same beings who laughed at his wounds now sit in uncomfortable silence as he presents evidence of their betrayal. For 2 years, you used us as test subjects, Jake says, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. You fed our soldiers to the enemy to gather intelligence for your own protection. You thought we were simple, primitive, expendable. You couldn't have been more wrong. The revelation hits the alien delegates like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't been the junior partner in the alliance, struggling to keep up with advanced galactic civilizations. They had been the most dangerous predator in the galaxy, deliberately concealing their true capabilities while their enemies revealed theirs. Every human defeat had been carefully orchestrated to gather intelligence and lull their opponents into overconfidence. General Taiwan, the aquatic commander who had orchestrated Jake's betrayal, watches in horror as human representatives reveal the scope of their deception. Earth's military had quantum computing systems decades ahead of galactic standard. Their genetic enhancement programs had produced soldiers with capabilities that bordered on superhuman. Their industrial capacity could manufacture weapons and ships at rates that defied alien understanding of physics and economics. The final twist comes when Jake reveals that his own capture and torture had been planned from the beginning. Earth's intelligence services had identified the alien conspiracy months earlier and used Jake as a willing double agent to expose the full extent of the betrayal. His escape had been facilitated by human operatives already embedded within the alien base. As the session ends, Jake delivers his closing statement with quiet intensity. You laughed at a wounded American soldier. You thought his pain was proof of human weakness. Today you learned that American soldiers don't break, they adapt. And when we adapt, the galaxy trembles. The chamber falls silent as the delegates contemplate their new reality. Humanity isn't just another species in the galactic community. They're apex predators who had been playing the long game from the very beginning.